history was once relived over tea and lemonade as Richmonders paid a visit to the old soldiers at the Robert E. Lee camp, the Confederate Soldiers' Home at Boulevard and Grove.
The Confederate Soldiers' Home covered the rectangular block between Kensington, the Boulevard, Shepherd, and Grove. And we're now standing at the southwestern corner of the old Soldiers' Home complex, where the Confederate Memorial Chapel is located right behind me. The cottages that the soldiers lived in, well, Cottage Row itself actually ran straight up north of us along this tree line, and they were in an even row, a neat even row with the chapel. The front porches of the chapel and all the cottages were in a straight line, and they were approximately 50 yards apart. We've checked old plaques and stepped it off now. We know that they were about 50 yards apart. So there were actually 10 cottages up this way if you consider heading north from the chapel, if you consider the superintendent's cottage, which was on the very end. And most of these cottages were Victorian style, two-story Victorian style farmhouses, roughly the size of the chapel. And the soldiers, of course, lived in these cottages.
The boulevard that many years ago was almost the beginning of country. Richmond did not extend too far beyond that, to a great degree.
I would say that these Confederate soldiers who lived on these grounds from 1884 until 1941, the 3,000 of them who lived here had quite a bit of life in them. They remained active to the very last. There's a famous story of the last two soldiers who lived here. One of them, I believe, at age 98, and the other one at 101, having a duel with their canes over some point regarding the war. So right to the very end, there was quite a bit of life in these old gentlemen.
They all had a favorite bench, because you could go there and find the same old soldier sitting in the same place. They gradually died off one by one, and sometimes when you'd go, they'd say, "You didn't come." No, you said, "No, sir." "Well, he's gone now." And you knew very well what had happened.
Always on the Confederate Memorial Day, the school children would take Zuzu crackers, which was a ginger snap, and ginger ale to the old soldiers, because usually they were without teeth and they could gum these. And they would regale us with tales of their exploits in the war between the states. They were like your own grandfather. Invariably, they're chewing tobacco. They'd always have some article of uniform on, although it was somewhat worn, bedraggled. They were proud of their uniform. They lived the military life on a reduced scale there. They had reveille every morning. The flag was run up until they were too infirm to do so. Some of the veterans were detailed to do this. They had retreat in the afternoon, and tattoo was sounded to say lights out and embrace Morpheus at 9 o'clock in the evening.
These grounds were used as playgrounds for all the children in the neighborhood. Families from all over Richmond brought their children by on weekends to meet these old soldiers. And the old soldiers used to carry pockets full of candy, like little peppermints, and pass them out to the children. Going to Robert E. Lee Elementary School, which is about 2 blocks from here, our teacher used to walk us down as a class to these grounds and take us into the museum and show us the cannon on the grounds and the soldiers. This was such a major part of Richmond in those days. I think anyone my age or older who grew up in Richmond would most certainly have visited these grounds.
The old soldiers, in common with all Southerners, I reckon, had a fondness for the distaff half, and they liked to honey up to any pretty lady that was in their presence. And it was rare when a debutante would have her coming out party at the Commonwealth Club, when a Confederate veteran would not lead the procession. And I remember those quite well. They were featured in the paper. It was very colorful. The veterans would put on their best preserved uniform, and with all the spit and polish, they would assume a jaunty military air and march to the music down the Commonwealth Club.
they were such a special, not just as a special breed, but a whole special happening. When you went there, you knew that everything was going to change when you came in that place, because these people didn't live in the world that you lived in. And their world was special for you as well as for them. And they didn't mind telling you about it, did they?
They were lost in their revelry of past glories. They would see the Confederate banner waving. They would see this Napoleon cannon and its caisson and its limber, and they would recall days, if they'd been in the artillery, when they'd seen such pieces fired.
The thing which was so emotional for me, which stands out so much in my memory, was when Sergeant Jack said, "If you wait a moment, I'll be right back." And he walked back into a closet in the back room and came back with his Confederate uniform on a coat hanger. He took a little pocket knife that he used to use to cut plugs of chewing tobacco with, and he cut a staff officer's cuff button off and put it in my hand and said, "I want you to remember me by this. I never want you to forget me." And they're still with me here. I don't know that I believe in ghosts, but I feel their presence every time I come on these grounds.